and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast usually recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy, but today we're doing it a little bit different and we're in Jamie's Triumph Spitfire and I'm in the passenger seat. We're off to TRGB today, which is quite local to us, to see if we can get a few bits and pieces for the Triumph. So we thought we'd record the podcast about it and kind of introduce you guys to it on the podcast. So it was about 3 weeks ago we went and picked it up, about now?
Yeah, about that.
We had 2 Triumphs to go and see, and we went up in Jamie's dad's BMW estate, which turned out to be quite handy. The first one we went and saw was, is it in Retford? Yeah. And it was quite nice, but it wasn't quite what we were after. It needed a bit more work than we thought, and but it was nice to kind of go and see it.
Really, it was more filler than car.
Yeah, the paintwork was the real problem on it. It had been kind of someone's first project classic, I think, and it needed a little bit more work than we were able to kind of put into it. So we went on from there to the second car that we were going to go and view, which was over towards Derby. So it was quite a big, long trip. And the guy had given us the address of the garage, but it wasn't there. And we then got in contact with him, and it turned out to be he'd taken it home for the weekend. So we went and kind of viewed it there. And I think off the bat you were pretty happy with how it looked, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, even now it looks great.
Yeah, and the guy had got it kind of sat there running when we turned up. He was doing all the like bits of rubbing it over, like really making it look the part kind of thing.
Yeah, last minute shining.
Yeah, and he took us. Yeah, he took you out for driving it to start with, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then we both went out for a drive with Jamie driving it to see kind of if he was happy with how it drove. And the only thing that we kind of picked up on was that when the revs got low, it cut out.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know, that was actually a problem that Peggy faced when we first got her. And it had been a little job of upping the idle, checking a few things over with my dad, and that had solved it. So we weren't too worried about the fact that the idle was essentially low by the sounds of it. The guy had offered to put an MOT and stuff on it if we came back kind of the following week, but Derby's about an hour and a half for us.
Yep.
That was about how long it took us to get back. So we went away for a little bit, had a look round like at the end of the road and just to sit and a talk, and you were really keen to take it home, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, walking around the car, it was completely different to the car we've seen before.
Yeah.
It was different to all the cars we've seen on, eBay, Facebook, whatnot. It was a reasonable price. The guy said that he wasn't going to be showing up other people to get loads of views in, that he was going to wait a couple of days for us.
Yeah.
But you don't really want to be doing that just in case, do you?
Yeah, we'd had, you'd wanted a classic for a little while now, and there'd been a few cases where we'd not been able to get to the car on time, and the guy who had got it for sale had gone and let other people view it. And we'd missed out, and so I think that was probably playing on your mind a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we essentially drove straight back to the guy, knocked on his door and said, what would we need to do to be able to kind of take it away today? And he was pretty happy for us to drive over to the garage, pick up all of the spares that we could fit into Jamie's dad's car, because it came with quite a lot of spares, because the car had been in the family for a really long time, and then transfer ownership and things on the forecourt there, and take it away. And we weren't that fussed on getting the MOT, because obviously you don't need one, and we were pretty happy with how it was running, and we could see kind of previous MOTs that it had been fine for, so we weren't too stressed about it. And yeah, so we did all that, loaded up the estate with what was in there, like a whole extra windscreen.
Yeah, another couple of horns.
Yeah, I was keen to have those. I love having some horns on spare.
Yeah, distributor cap.
Some of the more exciting stuff, there was like all the so the car hasn't got the chrome bumpers on it at the moment. The guy had taken them off because he preferred that look, but we got all of those. We got a spare frame for the hood, which is apparently probably a better one than the one that it's got on it, but the one that's on it works well. And there's an engine as well that we haven't picked up yet, but we're able to go and kind of pick up at any time because it's not taking up space, because they've got a big garage that they aren't accessing anyway. But yeah. Drove it back. How was driving it back for you?
I mean, it was fun. It was a fun car to drive, still is.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with the low revs and it dropping out at T-junction traffic lights and such, I mean, that was an adventure.
Yeah, it was an experience for you.
Yeah, it was. I don't know, I haven't driven a car like it, even with...
Yeah, because you said that even driving Peggy was a little bit easier than this was on that first drive.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's probably helped by the fact that Peggy's has got, while she's got an old engine and things, she's got the 1980s essentially gearbox in her, which makes it a lot easier to kind of change gears and things. It's a lot more forgiving than this can be, isn't it?
Yeah, with the first not having synchromesh, it's very difficult to jump into a scenario with a traffic light or a T-junction, having to go into first, but with no synchromesh, like it's difficult to go into first.
Yeah, you have to like pull. Yeah.
Keep it, alive. But yeah, that's an experience that I haven't really warmed on.
And that's why we're trying to keen to get it all sorted, aren't we?
Yeah.
But it is really fun to drive, really fun as a passenger. I loved that drive home as a passenger. It was a lot of fun. We were entirely unprepared. I hadn't bought a hair bobble, so my hair was all over the place, and yeah, we were loving it. But when we hit the A1 and we were lower than lorries, it was...
Yeah, you turn your head and there's giant wheels that look up your sides.
Yeah. So we got it home, all in one piece, and emptied all of the spares into the garage, emptied Peggy out of the garage, because it's a convertible, so it probably has to have priority of the garage for the time being. And then you took it to work for a couple of days after that, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple of days. And then after I had all my workmates look at it, saying what a nice classic car.
All jealous. Some of them have gone to view classic cars since that, haven't they?
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah, after that you were kind of really keen to try and make it run a bit better.
Yeah, I mean there's certain quality of life stuff that makes it a bit more of a daily solution to get to work and
yeah. And that idle thing was really the thing that was bothering us the most.
It's a sticking point.
Yeah. So we borrowed a load of equipment off my dad.
Yep.
and a set about our first time kind of taking carbs apart, poking about with them, breaking them a little bit, finding the parts that were broken. How did you find like your first time working on the cars? Because you've been a bit of a spanner hander to me when I've like attempted stuff on Peggy, but Peggy's been reasonably easy with a lot of stuff. This was a lot more involved than anything we've done on any car, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've had, obviously, working in IT, there's certain things that are similar. I mean, you have a certain way of thinking when all you do every day is solve problems.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you come into things knowing the symptoms of the problem, and you just got to find out all the symptoms and then, match that to your problem.
It's really interesting because I know that I've had a few people comment before saying that like our generation isn't very well set up for getting hands-on with cars and things, but for you to be like, actually my job has set me up in a way that means I really want to get to the bottom of the problem and work it out and work back from that. It is something perhaps people don't hear that often when talking to people of our age.
Yeah.
So it took, was it about 2 weeks of tinkering between work and other stuff that we had on, and we've got it to a point where, well, tell us what was kind of the big issue that you found.
So, there's been a few big issues with those cars.
Yeah.
So one of the main things that we saw first off was that you'd lift up the pistons on the HS2 carbs, you drop them, and they wouldn't clunk. Now all over like your Haynes manuals and all of that, it says it's very important that they clunk.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that you know there's a problem. The other one that I noticed after a while was the choke linkage. Now it's not super important, but sometimes you want to give it a bit of choke, a bit more fuel. And when everyone keeps saying that, so you pull it, does nothing.
Yeah, there was no like tension or anything in it, was there?
Not really, no. So you pull it and it will be the exact same result. The car wouldn't start, after you maybe flood it, but then after you wait for it to cool back down and drain and whatnot, then it would start.
Yeah.
And then while tinkering with it, I realised that the choke linkage was on a bit of a wonk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I undid the choke linkage a bit, realised that both bolts were set up like S bolts.
Yeah, they were like shaped like an S.
Yeah.
They were completely broken.
Yeah.
So you took that apart, ordered some parts, and the hope was that those would go back together. The big clean and things that you'd had of the carbs would mean that it was ready for us to take to kind of its first show, which was going to be Festival of the Unexceptional. But because of delays in posting and things like that and other stuff that we got going on, Peggy ended up going. But you were really determined after that to put it all back together. And like, despite how exhausting Festival of the Unexceptional was, you got up at 7 on the Saturday morning and was out in the garage. I stayed in bed, and you were poking it about, because we had a meet that we were going to go to on that Sunday morning as well, and the kind of decision was that we'd both go along in our cars, so I could go along in Peggy for when it started and you would get there for when your car had started. So you got up at 7, you were on call for work.
Yeah.
you got called out, so I had to go and do something on your laptop to fix the problem at work.
Yep.
And then it was back to fixing the carbs and the choke linkage. And you called me, and I'd been at this meet for about an hour, and you were like, I think it's done, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
And so me and my sister, who were there with my family and that, we went and stood at the entrance and waved you in. And how was that kind of drive after you'd first got it back almost pretty much happy?
Well, it was a victory, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a proper victory lap. There was a big grin on your face as you drove in.
Yeah, I've gone from driving it for the first time with it not being too happy,
Yeah,
tinkering a little bit with it, completely breaking it really, and then having it not running, and then fixing it last minute and driving it. Yeah, it was a victory. It wasn't like an outstanding victory. It's not like I sold everything with it.
no, but you'd come like a long way from someone who had not really done anything on cars to, and I was really proud of you, like when you drove in and you managed to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really good to see. And so now it's running a lot better. We think that there's an issue with some vapor lock-in when it gets hot, because it's been really hot the last few days when you've been taking it to work, haven't you? But how are you enjoying classic ownership now?
Oh, I enjoyed it a lot the first
3 days.
First 3 days, yeah, very much. After tinkering on it for ages, trying to get it to work, I got a bit dejected, you know.
Yeah,
I didn't really want to be taking it to a garage and have them solve all my problems.
yeah.
I've already solved, you know, all my own problems. So it's well.
You're really smug about it, without bragging too much. You're
Yeah,
really
of
smug
course.
about it.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of list of big things that we've got left to do now?
Oh, there's a big list of big things.
So one of the big things is that the guy really liked lowered cars, and even though the Spitfire as a normal setup is low, he lowered it further and then put really expensive big tyres on it, and they rub, and it makes a weird noise, doesn't it?
Yeah, nice little rubber grinding and a rubber smell.
Yeah.
And it's very therapeutic for me. I'm not worried about it at all.
And so we need some new springs, especially for the front,
Yeah.
just to bring that front up a bit. What else?
Well, we're still on the rubbing tyres. There's multiple things it could do. Could be, I read into it, could be that one of the springs could be slightly cracked as well on another portion,
Yeah.
one of the, like at the back of the tyres. And
Yeah.
that could cause some of my problems. Other ones is I'm still not like super happy with the carbs. I mean, the car smells too rich still. I know that's not entirely down to the carbs.
Yeah.
And I've got to a point now where, you know, we've done colour tune tests. They're coming up all right.
Yeah.
And the pistons are rising and falling as they should be.
It's doing a lot better, and it's at a point where you want to just use it as is rather than keep fiddling about with it, because it's summer and it's a convertible and you want to get out in it, right?
Yeah.
There's stuff that we could probably be better tuned, and we could probably get a bit more practice on, but for the time being it's doing what we want from it. Should we kind of circle back and think about why you wanted to buy a classic car?
So a lot of it stems from yourself.
Thank you. I would like that on the record. That's great. Yeah.
That can go on.
I am the problem, and you cursed me a lot whilst it wasn't working, and you were like, Why
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
I have just got a normal girlfriend and bought a normal car?
Yeah, why can't you just get everyone else, be like everyone else, buy a BMW or a Volvo and, you know.
A Volvo isn't entirely off the cards because we have come to the realisation that we probably need one modern-ish, reliable car between us, and your old Fiat Panda isn't that, and it makes us sad. So that's going, and we need to replace it. But other than me, because like I don't think I'm that persuasive.
Well, they're a lot of fun. I mean, I like tinkering on things. I mean, I prefer it if, you know, I tinker and then fix things.
Yeah.
But as a nice alternative, I like tinkering on things.
Yeah.
They're a lot simpler and a lot more fun to drive. I mean, driving the Panda now,
It makes you cry, doesn't it?
yeah, the driving's just not the same.
No, it's not a nice car to drive, and you leave a lot happier in the mornings when you're going to work in this,
Yeah.
for sure.
But then I come back a lot sadder because the car's done something to me that I'm sad about.
Ah, the joys of classic car ownership.
Yeah, well, that's what everyone keeps saying.
Well, we're not far now, only a few more minutes left until we hopefully get a few more spares and bits and pieces. It's really nice for you to have a Triumph stockist so close to us, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully they've got.
What you need, yeah, because it is a TR specialist.
Yeah.
But there's some shared parts, and there's a few Spitfires and things that we've seen on their page, and I know that one of the guys there owns a GT6, so I would presume he gets most of his parts when he can from there as well. Oof. As with any classic car, speed bumps aren't fun.
I can see another one coming up.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of something different, and Jamie's first time talking on the channel. You've been lurking in the back of some of the video content before, but
Yeah.
I think there's a few podcasts where you've been sat silently in the passenger seat as well.
Yeah, sometimes you can see my hand, you know, just one of those silent supporters in the shadows.
But yeah, if you've enjoyed this and you want to see some more content from the Triumph, it will no doubt show up on my Instagram, Twitter and Facebook a few more times, and perhaps we'll do a driving video. I have driven it very briefly, but perhaps we'll do a driving video where I kind of compare it to the differences with the Morris Minor, which are huge, I imagine, if I think really hard about it, in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.